I still remember the sound of the doorbell that evening, precise, sharp, like a scalpel cutting straight through my peace. It was 7:43 p.m. on a Tuesday, which means I was either correcting sophomore essays or contemplating if I should microwave leftover lasagna or surrender to Chinese takeout. Spoiler alert, I never got to make that choice. I crossed the foyer of our Midwestern two-story, the kind with crown molding and just enough square footage to mask the distance between two people who stopped talking years ago. My wife, Monica, was in the kitchen, chopping carrots like she was trying to solve a problem with each slice. That sound, knife on board, was a metronome for our silence. Then I opened the door. And the world didn't end. It just tilted. There he was. A lanky kid, maybe 18, with my eyes in Jessica Brenner's mouth. "My name is Eli Brenner," he said. "I'm your son." And just like that, the ground moved beneath me. You ever have one of those moments where your brain wants to laugh just to stop you from passing out? Yeah, that was me, standing there in my wool socks, gripping the doorknob like a life preserver while my entire marriage burst into quiet flames behind me. "Adam," Monica called. "Who is it?" I wanted to shut the door and pretend the last 30 seconds hadn't happened. Instead, I did what I always do, acted calm. That teacher poker face never fails. I invited the boy inside. Jessica Brenner, college sophomore. 3-week fling. She'd vanished after summer term and never returned a call. That was 20 years ago. Now her son was on my porch telling me he'd been trying to find me. My name was on nothing. No birth certificate, no court docs. Just an old photograph of me and his mother, arm in arm. And the resemblance? Unmistakable. Then Monica appeared. She didn't yell, didn't faint. Just stared at Eli, then me, then Eli again. Her dish towel fell to the floor like a white flag of disbelief. "You're what?" she whispered. And before I could even form a half-decent sentence, Eli pulled out the photo. Monica took one look and backed away like it burned. "I never knew," I told her. "I swear to God, Monica." She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Just recalibrated her rage like a sniper locking onto a moving target. "You cheated," she said with such calm finality I almost believed it myself. "You cheated and didn't even know it." I tried to explain. About the transfer. About losing touch. About how Jessica must have never found me after I changed dorms. But Monica had already made her decision. "Pack a bag," she said. "You're leaving tonight." I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I packed in silence, the kind that feels like standing in your own grave waiting for the dirt. She called her sister. She called a lawyer. She didn't call me anything at all. As I stood in the doorway, suitcase in hand, I told her again, "I didn't lie to you." She didn't respond. That night, I sat in a beige motel room across from a Holiday Inn Express and stared at a ceiling fan that spun like the questions in my head. I wasn't a cheater. Not back then, anyway. But here's the thing I learned fast. Truth doesn't matter when betrayal's in the room. And what I didn't know then, what I couldn't possibly imagine, is that Monica had her own secrets. And one of them? Well, he would be standing in my kitchen 3 months later, wearing my slippers. 3 months. That's how long it took for the dust to settle. Not in my marriage, no, that was already packed up and stored under irreconcilable, but in my own head. I stayed at the Holiday Inn for a week, then moved into a furnished apartment that smelled like a mix between lemon cleaner and someone else's regrets. I was rebuilding. Slowly. Quietly. Miserably. Then, one Monday afternoon, I got a call from the neighbor across the street, Mrs. Dalrymple. She's 82, retired librarian, obsessed with binoculars and neighborhood gossip. "Adam," she said, voice sharp, "there's a man in your house." My house. She meant Monica's, of course. I hadn't lived there in months, but hearing it called mine still sparked something in my chest. "He came out in a robe," she went on. "Your robe, I think. Took the trash out like he owned the place." I froze. What did he look like? Tall. Tan. Maybe late 30s. Had a smug little mouth and the kind of beard that says, "I drink green juice and correct waiters." She hung up before I could respond. Classic Dalrymple. I told myself not to go. Told myself 100 times. But apparently, I lost the vote. The car drove itself. I didn't knock. I still had the key. She never changed the locks. Probably forgot. Or maybe she wanted me to walk in. I opened the door slowly, like I might catch time itself doing something it shouldn't. And there he was, in my slippers, standing in the kitchen with a mug that said #1 teacher, which was both true and wildly insulting in that moment. "Oh," he said, blinking like I was the one intruding. Hey, man. That's what he said. Like we were college roommates bumping into each other in the dorm bathroom. Monica appeared around the corner a second later. Her face fell for exactly half a second before she reassembled it into something resembling annoyance. Adam, she said flatly, you can't just walk in. This is still legally half my house. We're working on that. He didn't move. Didn't even look guilty. Just sipped from my mug and leaned against my counter. What's your name? I asked him. He set the mug down, slow like a man unbothered by consequence. Zane. Zane. Of course it was Zane. I looked at Monica, who crossed her arms like a woman on trial refusing to testify. How long? I asked. She didn't answer. But Zane, bless his protein shake-filled heart, smiled. About 4 months, he said. But they were intense. I didn't flinch. I didn't throw anything. I just nodded, like I was checking the weather again. Monica finally spoke. It wasn't planned. You left. We were. Over. No, I said. You ended things after he started. That's different. Zane raised his eyebrows, as if impressed. Clever. Monica shot him a look. Not helping. The silence that followed was thicker than wet cement. I turned to leave. But before I did, I glanced down at the slippers on his feet. Those don't fit you, I said. He looked down. They're mine, I added. They flatten out over time. You'll get blisters. Then I walked out the door like the last sane man in a collapsing circus. Back at the apartment, I opened a notebook I'd been keeping. Nothing dramatic. Just a list. Not of wrongs or grievances or what-ifs. Just facts. Dates. Times. Patterns. You see, Monica had thrown me out for maybe having a son from a relationship I barely remembered. But meanwhile, she'd been importing Zane, probably through the guest bathroom window, since before Eli ever knocked on our door. Hypocrisy has a perfume, and it smells like sandalwood and denial. And here's the kicker. I wasn't angry yet. Not really. That would come later. Because revenge, real, lasting, surgical revenge, requires something Monica never understood. Patience. Turns out Zane wasn't just a rebound with abs. He was Monica's wellness coach. I found that out 2 days later from a mutual friend, Carol, who worked with Monica at the real estate office and had a penchant for mimosas and secrets. We bumped into each other at the grocery store. She looked at me like I'd just wandered in from the wreckage of a hurricane. Oh, Adam. I didn't think you'd still be here. Still be here? I lived in this town. I paid taxes. I had a library card. Where else was I supposed to go, Narnia? What's that supposed to mean? I asked, grabbing a bag of frozen peas like it owed me money. Just, with Monica and Zane. She winced at his name like it had too many vowels. I said nothing. I didn't know she was seeing someone from work. I lied. Carol raised a well-sculpted eyebrow. Oh, he doesn't work with her. He's her coach. Her coach. She said, lowering her voice. One of those guys who teaches yoga in jeans and talks about breathwork and finding your truth. She hired him after your situation. Ah, my situation. You mean the son I didn't know I had? She said he helped her rediscover her needs. Of course he did. Nothing says personal growth like Pilates and betrayal. Back at my apartment, I did something I hadn't done in 20 years. I skipped grading. Instead, I opened my laptop and made a new folder. Lesson plan. Personal recovery. Let me be clear, I wasn't plotting vengeance. Not yet. I was gathering intel. Teachers like me, we live for structure, rubrics, frameworks. If I was going to be labeled the villain in Monica's story, I might as well earn the role, with proper footnotes. So I started with the basics. Zane Kepler, that was his full name. Instagram bio, helping women unlock their best selves through movement and intention. Translation, I exploit emotional vulnerability for clout and smoothies. His website featured testimonials. One from Monica K, praising his soul-centric strength training. Soul-centric? What does that even mean? I read it twice and still couldn't tell if he was a coach or a cult recruiter. Then I hit the gold mine. A photo of the two of them on a retreat. Yoga mats. Waterfalls. Monica in a pose I had only seen once before, when she twisted her back trying to hang Christmas lights. They looked like a couple from a stock photo database labeled New Beginnings. That night, I had dinner with Eli. We met at a burger joint where they didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer answers. You okay? He asked between bites. I shrugged. I've been better. He nodded. I've been worse. We were two strangers with shared DNA and opposite timelines. Him at the beginning of something, me at the end of everything. Your mom, she ever talk about me? I asked. Only once, he said. She said you had kind eyes. That's it. Kind eyes. That's what I got. After 2 decades, a DNA match, and the collapse of my marriage, I got kind eyes. I drove home with the radio off and a smile that felt like sandpaper on my teeth. Monica had made her choice. She wanted a coach, a healer, a walking green smoothie with dimples. Fine. But what she forgot is that she married a man who teaches Shakespeare for a living. I know a tragedy when I see one. And better yet, I know how to end it. There's something unnerving about a man who doesn't raise his voice. I think that's why Monica always underestimated me. She mistook quiet for weakness, patience for passivity. She assumed that just because I didn't throw things or storm out of rooms, I didn't know how to burn bridges, strategically, silently, and with excellent lighting. Zane, for example, had no idea that when I asked him if he wanted to grab coffee sometime, what I meant was an informational interview with a mild caffeine buzz and a dose of Recon. He agreed, of course, because Zane's the kind of guy who thinks he's already won. You could see it in the way he shook your hand. Fingers too firm, smile too practiced. We met at a place called Root and Bloom, the kind of cafe where the menu was printed in lowercase and all the chairs looked like reclaimed driftwood. Zane ordered a maca oat fusion and mispronounced both maca and fusion. I got a black coffee. No cream, no sugar, no joy. So, how's everything? He asked, sitting across from me like this was some casual catch-up between two guys who weren't sleeping with the same woman a few months apart. I'm surviving, I said. And you? Thriving, man. Really thriving. He leaned back like a man doing his best impression of enlightened ease. Helping people step into their true selves, you know? I sipped my coffee, letting the silence do the heavy lifting. Zane, of course, mistook it for interest. Monica's been on this incredible journey, he continued. We've done a lot of emotional unblocking. She's shedding old skins. Shedding old husbands, too? He laughed. Loudly. No offense, man. Just different stages of life, right? You guys had your time. I nodded slowly, like a man writing a mental obituary. He went on about energy alignment, trauma mapping, some nonsense called mirror tapping. Apparently, they had just come back from a weekend retreat in Colorado where they did forest screaming. I screamed into a pine tree until I blacked out, he said, like that was a healthy sentence. Changed my life. I almost asked if the tree screamed back. Instead, I said, sounds intense. So this coaching business, how's it going? Zane brightened. Oh, booming. Since the podcast, I've had a wait list. Working mostly with women right now, but branching into couples soon. Couples. Right. I made a mental note. Then I smiled. Good for you. You've really built something. He grinned, flattered. Appreciate that, Adam. Takes guts to sit down like this, by the way. Not many ex-husbands would. I nodded. That's true. But here's the thing Zane didn't know. I wasn't here for closure. I was here for curriculum. Back at school, I dove into the archives. Every teacher has one, the folder marked, other duties as assigned. Mine had a few useful gems. An old journalism elective, some district grant paperwork, and best of all, a media production course I helped co-write 3 years ago, which meant I still had admin access to the student-run podcast studio. The wheels were turning. If Zane was getting clients from his podcast, Unleash and Align, then he must have uploaded his episodes to one of the free platforms. I searched it up. There it was. His voice, smooth and unchallenged, spreading softcore manipulation in 30-minute installments with titles like Radical Presence and The Sacred Yes. Episode 12 caught my eye, releasing the past Fudeke. I hit play. I knew that voice before she said a word. Monica. She was talking about unlearning obligation and rewriting old contracts. Her laugh was softer than I remembered, like she was trying on a new personality. You were married, right? Zane asked on the recording. Yes, she said. But I think I was really just committed to the idea of commitment. He was safe, predictable. He taught high school, right? Yes. English. She giggled. We used to joke that he saw life like a novel, always looking for symbolism in everything. I paused the audio. You ever feel your pulse in your ears? That's what it sounded like. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Something colder. Sharper. See, Monica thought she'd closed the book. But what she forgot is that I was still writing. So I made a new plan. Not a fit of revenge. Not vandalism or viral callouts. A lesson. Public. Elegant. Inescapable. At our school's spring symposium, a big annual event where faculty and students present community impact projects, I signed up for a presentation under the topic of narrative and identity in modern media. Very vague, very safe. The principal approved it without question. I worked for weeks, designed a talk, a slideshow, even wrote a personal essay, and I titled it, "The Story We Tell When No One's Watching." On the day of the event, the auditorium filled up fast. Colleagues, parents, students, community members, and Monica. She arrived late, wearing the kind of smile that says, "I came to support you, even though I've rewritten you in my head." Zane was with her. Tight shirt, loose morals. I took the stage. "Good afternoon," I said. "Today I want to talk about the way we narrate our lives. The characters we cast, the truths we trim." I started with an anecdote. A man, married 20 years, finds out he has a son he never knew about. Then he gets kicked out of his house for a truth he didn't even know was hiding. The audience leaned in. I clicked through the slides. Metaphor, 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 until the last one. An audio clip. From Unleash and Align, episode 12. Her voice filled the auditorium. He was safe. Predictable. Zane's face turned pale. Monica sat still as stone. I let it play for 10 seconds. Just enough. Then paused it. "Sometimes," I said, "we think the story's about a hero's journey. But really, it's about a quiet reckoning. And when the audience hears both sides, the narrator loses control. Silence. Applause. Not loud, but enough. Enough for Monica to feel the heat. Enough for Zane to understand I wasn't just an ex-husband with kind eyes. I was a man who knew exactly where the plot was going and was no longer interested in being the supporting character in someone else's fiction." A strange thing happens when you hold up a mirror. People don't always see themselves. They see what they want to believe about themselves. That's exactly what happened after the symposium. Monica didn't say a word that night. Neither did Zane. They both just disappeared when the last slide faded and the polite applause tapered off into the soft sound of folding chairs and judgment. But the fallout came the next day. It always does. I was sitting in my classroom, sipping bad coffee and grading essays about The Great Gatsby. Ironic, really, considering how that story also dealt with illusion and betrayal, when my phone buzzed. "Monica." Text message. "You ambushed me." I stared at the screen for a while, watching the 3 little dots pulse as she typed more, then changed her mind, then started again. She finally settled on, "Call me, please." So I did. Because unlike her, I don't believe in ghosting people after detonating their trust. She answered on the first ring. "Do you feel better?" "No," I said. "I feel honest." "That was private," she snapped. "So was our marriage," I replied. "Didn't stop you from outsourcing your healing process to a man who wears mala beads and thinks journaling counts as cardio." She didn't speak for a moment. "Then, you humiliated me." "No," I said, calm as a surgeon. "You did that on your own podcast." I just gave the audience a chance to hear it. There was a long silence after that. The kind you only get between 2 people who've run out of excuses. "I didn't want it to be like this," she finally said, her voice softer now, tinged with something that sounded almost like regret. "Almost." "Neither did I told her. "But you started rewriting the story before I ever turned the page." That weekend, I got an invitation. Cream-colored envelope. Heavy stock paper. Wax seal like something out of a Renaissance fair. The return address said Calder and Whitlock. I opened it slowly. "You were cordially invited to the engagement party of Monica Whitlock and Zane Calder." I stared at it for a full minute, not blinking, not breathing. Then I laughed. Not the bitter, broken laugh of a man defeated. The real kind. The kind that comes from finally understanding just how far someone's willing to go to rewrite their legacy. Zane didn't just want to take my wife. He wanted my spot. He wanted to wear the life I built like a costume. He moved into my house. Used my mugs. Took Monica to places I introduced her to. And now, he was stapling his name onto hers like he earned it. But here's the part that truly killed me. They sent me an invitation. Not out of politeness. Out of arrogance. Because in their minds, I was a non-threat. An old chapter they'd already skipped. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask, was that I had already RSVP'd in my own way. Not to their party. To the ending. The party was hosted at some local vineyard. Very rustic chic. The kind of place with Edison bulbs, wooden signs that say "Love Lives Here," and exactly 1 cow in the distance to make it feel authentic. I didn't attend, obviously, but someone I trusted did. See, A few weeks earlier, I'd gotten a call from Eli, my not-so-secret son. He had been coming around more often, asking questions, trying to understand the world that broke around him before he even got a chance to step into it. We were grabbing lunch at a food truck when I told him the whole story. Not just the sanitized version, the real one. He listened quietly, then said, "So, what are you going to do?" "I already did it," I said. "You mean the podcast thing?" I smiled. That was the prologue. And now it was time for chapter 1. Eli went to the engagement party, not as a guest, not as my spy, but as a photographer. He's been studying media and journalism, brought his own DSLR, told the hosts he was freelancing for a local events site. They didn't question it. Why would they? He was young, eager, disarming. He took photos all night. Candids, group shots, a few posed ones with Monica and Zane, grinning like lifestyle influencers. And then he waited for the moment I told him about. It happened after the toasts, after the wine, when Monica leaned in to kiss Zane, her hand resting on his chest, and the angle of the shot framed the fireplace behind them, the same fireplace I had custom built during our remodel 5 years ago. Snap. One photo. Perfect lighting. Intimate. Tender. And behind them? My book. You see, when I moved out, I left behind a lot of things. But not everything. I'd published a small poetry collection years ago. Nothing fancy, self-published, limited run, maybe 200 copies total. I left one behind. Deliberately. Tucked on a shelf right next to Monica's self-help books and scented candles. Eli zoomed in on the photo afterward. There it was. Hollow Homes, Poems from a Marriage by Adam Keller. The final poem? She left the light on. It was about betrayal. About watching someone fall out of love with you in real time. About how leaving the lights on doesn't mean someone wants you to come back. It means they want to look guiltless while you disappear. The photo went online the next day, and it spread. Because Eli uploaded it to his student publications site with a caption that simply read, "Sometimes the background tells the real story." It went viral. Quietly. Subtly. People started asking questions. Who wrote that book? Isn't that Monica Whitlock from the podcast? Wait, was this staged? And just like that, the real narrative started to leak through the cracks of their curated fairy tale. Monica called me again. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message. Just 3 words. "You planned this." I played it twice and smiled. Because no, I didn't plan it. I taught it. Actions have consequences. Stories have weight. And when you try to erase someone, don't be surprised when the ghost hands you the pen and says, "Go ahead, finish it." By the following week, Zane had gone radio silent. His Instagram, normally a festival of inspirational quotes and shirtless downward dogs, went dark. No more energy check-ins or heart-centered hustle posts. No wildly aligned selfies with Monica under fairy lights. Instead, nothing. It was beautiful. Meanwhile, Monica did what Monica does when the walls start whispering. She lit a candle, blamed the wind, and tried to rewrite the narrative. She posted a soft-lit photo of her holding a mug with the caption, "Sometimes storms are just a reminder to build better windows." I almost choked on my coffee. Eli texted me the screenshot with nothing but the skull emoji. Kid gets me. But here's where things got interesting. I started hearing from people. Not the nosy kind. Not the gossips. The quiet ones. The woman from the bank who helped us refinance our mortgage 3 years ago. A former colleague from Monica's office. Even one of her old book club friends, the one she used to call Kathy the chronic oversharer. All of them sent the same sort of message. Hey, I didn't want to get involved, but apparently Monica's version of the truth had some holes. And now that people were squinting closer, they could see the stitching. Like the trial separation she told friends about? That was news to me. According to Monica, we had mutually agreed to give each other space so we could explore different emotional ecosystems. I didn't even know I had an ecosystem, let alone one that required exploration. Then there was the rumor that I had moved out so I could chase a writing sabbatical, which explained why her friends looked so bewildered when I showed up to the symposium wearing khakis in spite. All this time, she'd been playing the role of the misunderstood spiritual phoenix, a woman wronged by stagnation. And Zane? He was her healing arc. But now? Now people were starting to realize the phoenix had ash on her hands. And just when I thought things couldn't get more poetic, karma made a reservation. It came via an email from the school district. Subject line, Wellness Curriculum Update, Vendor Vetting Policy. Apparently, someone, not me, but But someone had flagged a concern about a self-proclaimed transformational coach offering paid workshops to parents in the community. Someone who claimed to be trauma certified without actual credentials. Someone who had previously hosted sessions in Monica's home. Someone who may or may not have filmed a podcast in said home while sitting in a meditation pose on a rug he didn't pay for. District policy was clear. Any external vendors promoting services to school families had to be vetted, licensed, and above all, separate from faculty conflicts of interest. Monica wasn't technically staff, but she was a regular donor, a board volunteer, and the unofficial PR face for a couple of the school's charity drives. And suddenly, all of that started to evaporate. One parent pulled their kid from Zane's Mindful Masculinity weekend retreat. Another canceled a group session entirely after discovering he wasn't certified in anything except self-importance. Then came the cherry on top. A parent forwarded me a message Zane had sent in a group chat. It was enthusiastic. Too enthusiastic. If you're feeling stuck in your marriage, I can help realign your polarity. Sometimes, masculine energy needs a clean slate. Read, dump your husband, and do yoga with me. The parent's response? You're gross. I laughed so hard I had to sit down. Monica, of course, tried to put out fires. But she didn't have the right extinguisher. You can't douse public doubt with scented oils and denial. And it turns out that when you build a brand on authenticity, getting caught in a lie is bad for business. Even worse? Her exodus from my life had consequences she didn't budget for. Remember the house? Our beautiful, tastefully decorated, memory-infused house? She kept it, sure. But what she forgot was whose name was still on the mortgage. Mine. And when she refinanced without my consent, which she did by quietly signing on Zane as a domestic partner on one of the utility documents, the bank flagged it. Which meant investigation. Which meant paperwork. Which meant me. So I got a lovely email from a very confused loan officer who said, Mr. Keller, are you aware that you're listed as a co-borrower on a new equity line tied to an account in someone else's name? And I replied, calmly, not only am I unaware, I'd love to see the documentation. Spoiler alert, the signature on file? It wasn't mine. And just like that, Monica's little empire of curated comms started to shake. Turns out, banks aren't as forgiving as life coaches. I saw her again one afternoon, outside the local co-op, where she used to buy obscure snacks that taste like cardboard and moral superiority. She was wearing her Reset Day sweater, you know the type, oversized, off the shoulder, probably named something like Moss Whisper. I almost kept walking, but then she saw me and froze. Adam, she said, voice tight. Can we talk? I tilted my head. About what? Emotional ecosystems? Mortgage fraud. She winced. That's not what happened, right? I said. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that nothing in your world ever happens. It's all just journeys and alignment and miscommunications that accidentally end up on financial paperwork. She folded her arms. I made mistakes. Correct. But I didn't mean for it to get this messy. No one ever does, I said. But you made the bed. And the podcast. And the mess. We stood in silence for a beat. Then I added, just so we're clear, I'm not coming after you. This isn't revenge. I'm not going to court unless I have to. But if you think I'm going to disappear quietly while you gaslight a town and forge my name on a document, I stepped forward. You forgot who you married. I teach Macbeth, Monica. Her mouth opened slightly. I know what it looks like when someone wants the crown more than they want the throne. She blinked. I walked away. By the end of that week, the air around Monica started to feel thinner. Like something had shifted, and people finally stopped pretending she wasn't slowly suffocating in her own spin. The district quietly, uninvited, her from the spring gala. Zane's podcast vanished from 3 platforms. And I started getting invitations to things I hadn't been welcome to in months, neighborhood barbecues, trivia nights, even a faculty mixer where someone actually said, "It's good to have you back." I never left. I just stopped smiling. Meanwhile, Monica kept trying to reframe the narrative. First came the passive-aggressive Instagram quotes. Growth is messy. So are humans. Then the veiled jabs, let them misunderstand you. It's none of your business anyway. Sure. But when your misunderstanding leads to a forged signature and a boyfriend who pitches breathwork as couples therapy, someone's gonna start asking questions. Like the bank, and the school board, and eventually Zane. Because that's what happens when you build a relationship on shared delusion. Eventually, one of you sobers up. And in this case, it was him. I got the call on a Thursday night. Eli again. "You're not gonna believe this," he said. "Try me." Zane moved out. I blinked. What? Packed a bag and left. Monica didn't post anything about it, but a friend of mine saw him loading stuff into a silver Prius behind the yoga studio. He was wearing flip-flops and looked like he just lost a custody battle with a crystal. I didn't ask how Eli knew that much detail. I was just impressed. Later that night, I got confirmation, a polite little email from Monica's lawyer. Ms. Whitlock is requesting your signature to release your name from the joint mortgage and acknowledge no further involvement in the refinancing process. Translation. Zane bailed. The house payments came due, and the only adult left on the paperwork was me. I didn't reply. I printed it out, framed it, put it next to the invitation to their now canceled engagement party. I keep it on a shelf labeled Lessons. 2 weeks later, I got a handwritten envelope in my mailbox. It wasn't from Monica, or Zane, or the bank. It was from Eli. Inside was a folded sheet of notebook paper. It read, "Hey Dad, I didn't say this earlier because it felt weird, but thanks. Not just for being honest, but for handling all this the way you did. You could have set the whole thing on fire. You didn't. You taught me what it looks like to stand tall when people try to write you out of your own story. And if I ever become a husband or father, I hope I remember this chapter of your life. Not the pain, the dignity." I stared at the letter for a long time. Then I folded it carefully, slid it into a manila envelope, and labeled it proof. Not of the betrayal. I had plenty of that. Proof that even when everything breaks, you get to decide how the pieces fit back together. You want the revenge part? Here it is. I didn't torch her reputation. I didn't go public with the financial forgery. I didn't press charges, though I legally could have. Instead, I bought the house. Not to live in. To sell. I had the bank draw up a buyout agreement. Monica was desperate to offload the payments, and I had the leverage. She signed. I didn't renovate. Didn't repaint. Didn't even mow the lawn. I listed it exactly as it was. One-owner home, filled with echoes and expensive lessons. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 1 ghost of a marriage. It sold in a week. To a couple in their 30s. She teaches biology. He brews craft beer in the garage. They're engaged. Happy. Naive. I wished them well. I handed them the keys, smiled politely, and walked away. No speech. No final monologue. Just silence. Because that's the part Monica never understood. Sometimes, the cruelest revenge is peace. Not the screaming. Not the exposure. Not the satisfaction of winning. Just letting the storm pass while you rebuild something stronger, alone, if you have to. And walking away so quietly, it echoes.